Welcome to another deep dive today.
Yeah.
Today, we are going to be talking about unlocking fluency in English.
Oh, very cool.
I'm excited.
Me too.
So, imagine being able to just chat with friends
Yeah.
or give a presentation and just feeling confident in English.
It's a game changer.
It is. It is a game changer.
It is.
And, I think sometimes we get caught up in this idea that fluency means, perfection.
Right.
You have to speak perfectly like a robot.
Like you're a native speaker, right? Like there's no difference.
Yeah.
And it's just not true.
Yeah, that's a myth.
It is a myth
Yeah.
because even native speakers,
Yeah.
we mess up, we pause,
All the time.
we say all kinds of like filler words and things.
Yeah, we get like, tongue-tied sometimes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what would you say are some of the things that trip people up?
I think the biggest one is the fear of making mistakes.
Ooh.
Which is so understandable.
Yes.
Because you're putting yourself out there.
Yeah, you don't want to sound silly.
Right. You don't want to sound silly. You don't want to feel embarrassed. But actually, I think that's the biggest thing holding people back.
I think so too.
It's the fear.
Yeah, because if you can kind of get over that fear,
Yeah.
then you're free.
You're free to just experiment, to play with the language.
Yeah, and to learn from those mistakes.
Exactly. Because every mistake is just an opportunity to learn and grow.
It is data.
Yeah. Like you're experimenting. You're figuring out what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah, and then you can adjust based on that data.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and you know what else I think is a big barrier? Is just not speaking enough.
Oh, yeah.
Like people are afraid to speak.
Absolutely.
And it's understandable, but it's like learning to ride a bike.
Yes.
You cannot just read about it. You have
Yeah.
to actually get on the bike and practice.
You got to do it.
You have to.
Yeah, and fall down a few times.
Can fall down a few times and look silly and,
And then you get better.
and then you get better. Exactly.
Yeah. But what about people who don't have access to, a lot of English speakers that they can practice with?
I think that's where things like talking to yourself,
Oh, yeah.
recording your voice, or even shadowing, which is a technique where you listen to a native speaker and you repeat after them, trying to match their rhythm and intonation.
I love that.
It can be really, really helpful.
I love shadowing. It's so fun. And you can even do it with like music or movies.
Oh, absolutely. Anything you enjoy.
Yeah, anything you enjoy. And it's a great way to kind of get that flow
Yeah.
of the language.
That natural rhythm.
Yeah, and I've also heard that translating, word for word can kind of trip people up.
Absolutely, because you're constantly going back and forth between two languages
Yeah.
instead of just thinking in English.
Yeah, and that takes up so much mental space.
Yeah, it slows you down.
Yeah, it does.
It really does.
How can people kind of start making that shift to thinking more in English?
One simple but effective exercise is to start labeling things around your house. So instead of thinking mesa for table, think table directly.
Yes.
You can do that with everything in your environment, and gradually it'll become more natural.
Yeah, I love that. And it's something you can do anywhere.
Anywhere.
You could be walking down the street. You could be, in your car. You could be at the grocery store.
At the grocery store.
Yeah.
In the shower.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a really good way to just kind of immerse yourself in the language.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've talked about, the fear of making mistakes and the importance of speaking practice.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you think can hold people back from fluency?
I think not paying enough attention to listening,
Ah, interesting.
because it's easy to focus on speaking, but listening is just as important.
I think so too, because you're training your ear
Exactly.
to hear the sounds of the language.
You're getting familiar with the pronunciation, the rhythm, the intonation.
The nuances.
All those subtle things that make a language sound natural.
Yeah. And where would you recommend people start for listening practice?
Oh, there's so many great resources out there. Podcasts are amazing.
Podcasts are fantastic.
Yeah, you can find podcasts on any topic you're interested in.
Anything.
And it's a great way to kind of passively absorb the language.
Yeah, you can be doing other things while you're listening.
Exactly.
So, folding laundry or cooking dinner or even driving.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, we've talked about some of the roadblocks to fluency.
Mhm.
What about building the right mindset?
Oh, the mindset is key.
It is.
Because if you don't believe that you can become fluent,
Yeah.
it's going to be much harder.
You're already setting yourself up for failure.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what are some of the key mindset shifts that people can make?
I think one important one is to embrace progress over perfection.
Ooh, tell me more about that.
So instead of aiming to sound exactly like a native speaker right away,
Right.
which is an unrealistic expectation for most people.
Yeah. It can be really discouraging.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Focus on making small improvements over time and
Yes.
celebrating those wins,
Yeah.
no matter how small they may seem.
It's like those little milestones
Exactly.
when you're learning a new skill.
Yeah, like when you finally ride that bike without training wheels.
Yes, or you play that chord on the guitar perfectly.
Or you finally nail that recipe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those little things are so important.
They are, because they keep you motivated and they show you that you're making progress.
Exactly. And I think another important mindset shift is to develop a growth mindset
Oh, absolutely.
where you believe that you can actually improve your abilities
Yes.
through hard work and dedication.
It's all about believing in your potential
Yes.
and seeing yourself as a work in progress.
Yeah, and I think that's so important for language learning because it can be challenging.
Oh, yeah.
It can be frustrating at times.
Definitely.
But if you have that belief that you can actually improve,
Yeah,
it makes it so much easier to stick with it.
absolutely. And to overcome those challenges.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I completely agree.
Yeah. And finally, I think it's important to remember that fluency takes time.
Oh, it does.
It's not something that happens overnight.
It's a journey.
It is a journey.
It's a process.
And it's a process that unfolds over time.
Exactly.
And it's like growing a tree.
I love that analogy.
You have to nurture it gradually, and eventually you'll see impressive results.
Absolutely. And you got to be patient.
You have to be patient.
Yeah.
You can't just expect it to happen overnight.
Right.
It takes time and consistency.
Consistency is key.
It is. Okay, so we've talked about the mindset. We've talked about some of the common pitfalls now. Let's get into some practical things that people can do to actually improve their fluency.
Yeah.
What are some actionable steps?
So one thing I like to recommend is something called Think Aloud. Have you ever heard of that?
Say aloud.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Tell me more.
It's basically you're narrating your day in English. So like as you're getting ready in the morning or you're making breakfast or you're, commuting to work, you're just talking to yourself. Oh, wow.
Describing what you're doing.
In English.
In English.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a running commentary on your life,
Exactly.
but in English.
And, at first it might feel a little weird.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll become.
Right.
With thinking and speaking in English without having to translate in your head.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so think aloud. That's a good one. What else?
Another fun activity is something called Two Truths and a Lie.
Ooh, that sounds fun. I like games.
Yeah, it's a great party game, too.
Okay, how do you play?
So basically, you come up with 3 statements about yourself.
Okay.
2 of them are true and 1 of them is a lie. And then you share those statements with your friends or a conversation partner.
Right.
And they have to guess which one is the lie.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's a really fun way to practice your storytelling skills.
Yes.
And also just to kind of have a laugh and connect with people.
Yeah, I like that because it forces you to use different vocabulary.
You got to be creative. You got to be creative.
Exactly.
And you have to think about how to express yourself in an engaging way.
Right. It's not just about grammar.
Yeah.
It's about connecting with people.
Yeah.
On a personal level.
I love that. And speaking of connecting with people, another great way to improve your fluency is to join conversation groups.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever done that?
I have. I've actually met some really great friends through conversation groups.
Yeah, I think that's amazing because, you can meet people from all over the world
Absolutely.
who are also learning English or who are native speakers.
And it's a great way to kind of get out of your comfort zone
Yes.
and practice speaking in a real life setting.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for people who are maybe a little bit nervous about joining a conversation group?
Yeah, I would say just be yourself. Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Right.
Everyone there is in the same boat.
Yeah. Everyone's there to learn.
Everyone's there to learn and to support each other. So just relax, have fun, and enjoy the conversation.
Yeah. And you know what I've noticed is that a lot of times people in conversation groups are really patient.
Oh, yeah.
And they're very encouraging.
Absolutely.
Because they know what it's like.
They've been there.
Yeah.
They've been in your shoes, so they're very understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so conversation groups, awesome. Highly recommend. What else? What other resources?
So for listening practice, I'm a huge fan of podcasts.
Podcasts.
Yeah.
I love podcasts.
They're such a great way to immerse yourself in the language.
They are.
And you can learn about all sorts of different topics.
Yeah, it's like having a personalized radio show.
Exactly.
Tailored to your interests.
Tailored to your interests.
Yeah, so what are some of your favorite podcasts that you would recommend for language learners?
Ooh, so many.
So many to choose from.
I know. But we'll have to save those recommendations for after a quick break.
Okay.
We'll be right back with more tips and resources to help you unlock your English fluency.
All right, so we are back, and you promised some podcast recommendation
I did.
for language learners, so lay them on me.
All right, well, one of my personal favorites is 6-Minute English from the BBC.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's a really good one,
I think they keep the episodes pretty short.
right? Yeah, the episodes are only 6 minutes long.
So they were really easy to fit into your day.
Exactly. Like if you have a, short commute or you're, just waiting in line somewhere, you can just pop in an episode.
Yeah, I like that bite-sized learning.
Yeah, and they cover a really wide range of topics.
Okay, cool.
Another one that's really good is Voice of America, Learning English.
Okay.
And they have a variety of programs like news reports, feature stories, even grammar lessons,
Oh,
all designed for English language learners.
so it's specifically geared towards people who are learning English.
Exactly.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and one thing I really like about Voice of America is that they provide transcripts for all of their episodes.
Oh, that's helpful.
So if you're having trouble understanding something,
Yeah.
you can read along.
Especially, I think, for like pronunciation.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really helpful to see the words written out.
Yeah, and they also have interactive exercises.
Oh, cool.
So you can really test your comprehension.
I like that.
Oh.
Any other podcast recommendations?
If you enjoy stories, you should check out The Moth.
Okay.
It's a podcast where people tell true stories live on stage.
Oh, wow.
And the stories are really engaging. They're often personal and humorous and sometimes even a little bit heartbreaking.
So it's a good mix.
Yeah. And it's a great way to hear real people telling real stories in a natural conversational style.
I like that. And I think that's really helpful for language learners to kind of hear those natural rhythms
Absolutely.
of English.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got podcasts. What about other resources?
Well, YouTube is a treasure trove of language learning content.
Yeah.
You can find videos on pretty much anything grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, conversation practice.
And a lot of it is free,
Yeah, most of it is free.
which is amazing.
Yeah, so you don't really have any excuse not to be practicing your English.
That's true. That's true.
You have all the resources right at your fingertips.
All right, so YouTube definitely recommend. Any other resources come to mind?
Well, there are also a ton of language learning apps out there,
Yeah.
like Duolingo, Babbel, Memrise.
Yeah.
These apps are great for practicing vocabulary and grammar,
Yeah.
and some of them even have speaking exercises.
Yeah, I've used a couple of those. They're fun.
Yeah, they're really fun and engaging.
Yeah, it's like gamifying the learning process.
Exactly. And they make it really easy to fit language learning into your busy schedule.
Yeah, for sure. So as we wrap up our deep dive into unlocking English fluency, what's the one key takeaway that you want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing to remember is that fluency is achievable for anyone.
I agree.
It doesn't matter what your background is or how old you are.
It's all about mindset.
Exactly. If you have the right mindset and you're willing to put in the effort, you can become fluent in English.
And find those resources that work for you.
Yes, find what you enjoy and make it a part of your daily routine.
It shouldn't feel like a chore.
Exactly. It should be fun. It should be something that you look forward to.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
Yeah. So keep practicing, keep learning, and most importantly, never give up on your dream of speaking English fluently.
I love that message. I love that. And on that note, we've come to the end of our deep dive today. We hope you enjoyed this episode and we hope you learned something new.
We'll see you next time.
See you later.